Good.
How's your boat?
That was a nice presentation at the pavilion for the barbecue.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very nice. Nice plaque, pretty colorful.
It was a nice plaque. Yeah.
Mhm,
Nicely done.
mhm. Okay, let's call the meeting to order then. And I guess we only really have one item on the agenda. CJ, anybody out there that wishes to speak?
Hey, everybody. We just have Todd Walter here, who I believe is here to present on behalf of Conservation Advisory Council.
Okay, so I guess let's just go ahead and have him come in and we'll go from there.
Hey, Todd.
Todd?
Hey there, how you doing, Dean?
Good.
Oh, nice quilt.
Yeah.
I can take no, that's my wife. It's all her.
Wow.
Okay, Todd, you're gonna give us a quick overview, I guess, tonight?
My first?
Yep.
Sure, I'll do that. Let me share my screen and I'll go for this. I'm part of the Lansing Conservation Advisory Committee, along with some other people, and I think we're here to talk to you about some data we've collected that we hope you can consider as you move forward with your policies. So let me just share my screen. As always, I have too many screens open, so hopefully I'll find what I want here. Here we go. Oops. Okay, so here's a little slideshow we put together as part of the CAC, the Conservation Advisory Commission Council, and we'll what we want to talk about today is really the Scenic Byway. We kind of are proposing that we consider for Lansing. It's 34B down to Rogues Harbor, and then then going down towards Ithaca, the Lakeshore Drive. So I forget, there was something that was presented before, and I can't remember. There was a with and without foliage issue that came up in the last presentation. So I'm sorry I wasn't part of that. And so this is just a computer program that we use to kind of like try and identify, here are some areas that have we think we had outstanding view sheds, essentially really good views without foliage, but then when there was foliage on, there might be some blockage of those views, and so we wanted to kind of come back and address some of those issues with everybody here today, and we provided some photos which I think are way better, and hopefully we'll continue to accumulate these photos and show like why we think these parts of Lansing are worth conserving. Okay, and so without reading this entire thing to you, this entire slide to you, let me just move forward here, and here's the byway that we as the CAC, the Conservation Advisory Council, have sort of suggested be preserved, and you can see it's again 34B coming from down Cuyahoga County, and that's this red line, and we sort of think that the northern part of this again Scenic Byway is really especially scenic, and we'd like to, if we can, preserve maybe 1,000 feet on both sides of the road, after lots of deliberation. And then as we get past Salmon Creek, which is really kind of a weird spot right now because of construction, so we don't really have a good sense of what happens right as you cross that spot. But as you move south of that, we're proposing, considering 500 feet on either side of the road as a scenic scape to preserve. And so in this map here, the green strip is showing the 1,000-foot kind of border around the byway, and the I know purple or mauve section as we move south is the 500-foot buffer that we'd like to preserve. Okay, and so we'd like to, in these next several slides here, I'll look at. Well, I'll show you. I'll show you on the bottom of the figures. We have our maps with what our computer program shows us as being scenic, and that's most of the yellow shaded areas. And then really the parts we really want to focus on are the top pictures, which are, these are images that were taken over the course of the past year, sort of showing you what this looks like. And I think you can see here, here we are pretty far north on 34B, and we got some nice agricultural views with the lake in the background as we look to the west, and then even as we look to the east, still some nice views that we think epitomate are representative of what we like about Lansing. Okay, so here's two spots, or here's a spot on 34B looking east and west. Here's other spots. We move more southerly, and feel free to interrupt me if I'm moving too fast here. But again, here's another spot. You can see these yellow areas on the maps are showing you kind of what we think are the view sheds of the areas you can actually see from the road. And then of course on the top here are the pictures, again, kind of one looking back towards the lake and another one looking kind of into Lansing, and the ag land, the forest land that we think are kind of beautiful and worth preserving.
Do you want to explain if you can go back to the previous slide, the one on the left is without foliage and the one on the right is with foliage?
Right. For the maps themselves. Exactly. Good point, Tom. Thank you for correcting that. So yeah, when you look at these maps here, the yellow is what our computer program tells us is the view shed, what you can see without foliage, and the one on the right is, and this will be the case for all of these, is what we see without foliage or with foliage on. And as you can see, the computer program assumes that as soon as fields are grown up, we can't really see anything. But I think you'll all agree that we can actually see more than the computer program says we can see.
Todd, I have a vested interest in all that acreage,
Oh, I'm sure.
Right friggin' my backyard.
Yes.
And I just wanted to know, and I'm serious.
Yeah.
Got 2,300 feet of frontage on one side and the other. So I just didn't know, I like your ideas. It's all wonderful, but what do I get paid for this once you make the Scenic Byway?
Oh, that's an excellent point. And I don't know exactly. This is a state. I mean, this becomes a state thing. The byway becomes a state
We're
thing.
piggybacking on the state. I mean, the state lady wanted to have a yurt colony with unique places to stay. So I see, it all depends what it is, and I'm going to be quiet from now on, but it gets to people I know pretty well. So go.
Yeah, no, don't. Please don't be quiet. No, those are great questions, and I don't know exactly what the financial benefit is.
Todd, you keep mentioning the word preserve. Can you define the word preserve? What do you mean by preserve? Do you mean no building, no construction? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
Can I step in and say something?
Sure.
So we were asked by the planning department to try and define a overlay district for the Scenic Byway and how wide it should be. And what particular, are there particular points along it that are especially nice? This is not a project that we instigated, okay, but we were asked to do it. And it's up to the codes committee really to define how they're going to treat an overlay district. And overlay districts were proposed in the comprehensive plan. So I don't want people to feel that this was something that we're forcing on anybody. We were asked to do it, and this is what we came up with.
Yeah, that's great, and we appreciate that, Tom. But I think we need to know the next step. In other words, maybe it's not you guys to answer, maybe it's the town board. But once we have these districts and these setbacks, what's the goal here? Is the goal here to prevent any construction or limited construction? What's the goal with these view sheds? I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Alfonso, you're absolutely right. And our intent here is not at all to impose anything. This is just information we were asked to provide. So
okay,
we've all went out and driven up and down these things and met with each other and said, this looks good. This looks like actually a really nice view. This doesn't look like,
Exactly.
But it's just
this
information.
particular view is greatly changed as soon as spring comes, as far as that hedgerow, and when there's 8 to 9 feet of corn there, it's not getting any great view either.
Yeah,
So-
you're absolutely right, Lynn.
And so you got to take things, into account. And I live on that road, and people don't look out the damn window. Their kids are in the back seat looking at their phone, and the driver should be looking at the road. And I know there's people that ride bicycles, and it's getting to be horrible with the people that are walking. You got to be careful. You got a good tree when you need to take a leak. But it's a situation that I realize the town seems to think that they need to do. It'd just be nice to find it somewhere else, like on Lake Road, where you really can see something.
Al?
Larry, you had a question, Larry?
Yeah, and actually this has something to do with the view sheds that are noted across the lake on the no foliage map. And I bring this up because it's been used against the town of Lansing before. What sort of stakeholders does this make us in the property across the lake? Because I can remember when we had complaints from the planning boards and town boards of a couple of the municipalities across the lake when things were going on our side of the lake because they could see it. What sort of stakeholders does this make Lansing in the use of the land in Jacksonville and Trumansburg?
Yeah, I don't think we care about what they see, but we really do want to preserve, again, conserve, preserve, whatever word you want to use. We're just trying to say, these are things that we think are iconic of Lansing and may want to be considered as you move forward with zoning or codifying different regulations for how.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. I just wanted to point out that this sort of thing has been used against Lansing in the past by our neighbors across the lake.
Yeah, and they can go to hell. But that's just,
Yeah, but now you got me, and you got Jeff Cook, and you got neighboring, and you mean get me again on Algerine Road. I think go through your presentation and we'll discuss it.
No, and this is what this is all about. This is about the discussion, not about the presentation. Don't worry about that.
No,
you guys
go ahead, by all means.
You guys have all seen these views, so I'm showing you nothing you don't know. And again, we just think like there's some things that are really beautiful about Lansing that we don't want to lose. And again, here's
Cuba County, Tioga County.
Yep, of course.
Todd, are you going to be identifying the parcels that are shaded in yellow by ownership and say tax map number? Is that going to be done? eventually?
I am not doing that in this presentation. We could do that, but I don't want to do that.
Okay,
I think we want to have this be egalitarian. These are just things that are happening out there in nature. And again, I think, you know, when I look across the northern part of Lansing, I think all the farmers are doing a pretty good job of keeping things beautiful. I enjoy going out and driving around North Lansing and looking at I mean, right now what we have, the swamp marigolds and the trilliums are all in bloom. You know, and I think the farmers appreciate that. So yeah, I'm not going to name names or do tax parcels.
okay.
That's you guys.
So are you complete with your photos and your shading and your maps? Is that complete at this point in time?
It is complete. We want to go back out. I think we'll probably go out several times more during the year and take more pictures to get, you know, obviously we've got all leaf off. This is times when the views were as wide as possible. I think we'll go out there. I think there's times, especially in the fall, when some of these views are absolutely spectacular with the fall leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll probably get pictures of those as well and include those in our assessment.
What's the next step? Is this going to be presented to the town board, or where are we going? Where are you going from here?
Well, right now it's the planning board. I'm not sure what. Tom, can you help me? What do we have a document of some sort available, don't we?
So I think this is something that we need the codes committee to get involved with in terms of, you know, do they want to even do an overlay district? Overlay districts were certainly proposed in the comp plan, so it's not a new idea.
Okay, but again, if you have an overlay district, what are you hoping to accomplish once you have that overlay district? I think that's the question.
I think what would be the ultimate objective is to try to maintain these views, even with I mean, development's going to happen. Okay, it's not like, okay, you cannot build anywhere along here. If you do build, I think the question is, can you do it so that these views are maintained somewhat?
Okay, that's a good approach. I agree with you. I can see that.
Right. I would even go one step further than Tom. I mean, one of the things that came in our meetings was perhaps there's development that actually enhances these views or takes advantage of these views that we might be able. I mean, I don't know. I'm spitballing here a little bit, but you could imagine a small brewery that like actually takes advantage of these views as part of its development. So it's more to have these as part of the thinking, not as a something that prohibits development per se.
What about, you know, and I think you finish your presentation because it's never going to get done. We can take this to the third degree.
Okay, there's not much presentation here, but these are views we've all seen a 1,000 times because we all live here. You know, here's another one. Some of these are, you know, somebody mentioned Eldrine Road. Here's an Eldrine Road view. I love that area down by Eldrine. Couple more, again, the bottom map showing you with and without the leaves on the trees. Just expansive views of agricultural lands down on 34B. I'll just move very quickly through this. This is as you move down towards Roosevelt.
Al, wait,
What's that, Larry?
I wanted to remind everybody that we had asked the CAC to give us the views that showed both with and without foliage.
Right,
And
right.
they've done that here, and I think we should be paying attention to that.
Yes.
I
yes.
appreciate the effort they've taken to do that.
Yes, I agree.
And it's looking pretty good to me. As far as overlay districts, you know, I've been in favor of using the overlay districts, but we have to take into account personal property ownership as well, like Lynn says.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have on our committee, we have a couple of farmers who are very, very cognizant of that and actually have been very active in developing this. And I think you're absolutely right. And I mentioned farmers just because they own a majority of the land in Lansing. You know, here we're moving down.
Yeah, but they don't own up here. They own down in Salmon Creek, and they own in the you know, the new ag zone. And
Okay,
it's real easy. I mean, John and I are good friends, but that, you know, it's pretty easy to dump it on Jeffrey and me. So
okay, well, that's exactly who I want to dump it on. But but you know, yeah. Here you go. And as we and just to kind of finish this thing up, as we move kind of south of Salmon Creek, we recognize there's more historical buildings. And again, here we get a little more densely populated. So we've kind of brought our buffer in, you know, to 500 meters. Is it 500 feet? You know, and of course, here's Rogues Harbor and one of our iconic pieces of architecture. And you know, as you continue moving south, and that I think, and here's why I kind of want to commend Lansing's zoning a little bit, because here we're moving kind of south of Rogues Harbor, and the views are actually remain pretty good, even though I think if you just go over the hill, the development has been fairly dense and really done in a way that doesn't distract from the view shed. So I mean, I guess I'm bringing this up as like a case in which everybody's doing a pretty good job. And I'm just gonna end there. That's the end of my presentation. There's a big long texty slide that Tom actually sent me, and he can take ownership of that. And Tom, I assume we can just make this available to everybody, right?
I already sent it to the planning board.
Okay, good. So that's our presentation. And again, this is just information that we are providing as you move forward with I don't know, codifying regulations or extract making permits available. And this is all it's almost redundant to do this, right? Because you guys all know these, you know, these views already. We've driven back and forth along them, I don't know, dozens of times this past years, trying to figure out what are some iconic views for Lansing. And yeah, keep this information in mind. And we've gotten some specific points we think are especially indicative of Lansing that we think would be nice to continue to have. I don't want to use the word preserve because I feel like that's kind of a red letter word for everybody, but that's where we are. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. I know you guys all have lots of other things on your agenda besides listening to me. I can stop sharing if that's good with everybody.
Sure. Todd,
Okay.
Todd, what's the interaction of this overlay district with this open space and conservation plan? Are they, or CJ, are they interrelated?
They are, but this is kind of a unique piece of that overarching effort. Oh, actually, CJ, you can answer that.
Yeah, sure. So the open space index is required to be completed by Conservation Advisory Council as part of their charge. And so, you know, there's some really talented, really CAC is filled with talented people who are thinking about conservation and environment. And they were tasked as part of this, of fleshing this out, to think about the geographic extent of the overlay to, in effect, when CAC and planning board are ready to move forward with this, there was some overlap with the mapping and then some of that design understanding that I believe we had discussed at length, things like design standards, materiality, colors, and things like that. So they're getting ready to kick off that project within the next month or so. And that's really intended to have an index of the open spaces in the town, but also come up with some priority strategies for how to get more lands into conservation. There's many, many ways to go about this. And I'll tell anyone who listens that zoning is a wonderful regulatory approach, but we really need non-regulatory approaches to work on conservation and protection and enhancement to the greatest degree possible of farmland. So that's probably plenty on that.
Deb, you had a comment?
Yeah, one of the things I like that you're using, Todd, is the word iconic views. I mean, I think that's really nice to consider that this is something that kind of represents Lansing, that there's some beauty here that we may take it for granted, but there's stuff here that you don't get any other places. And personally, coming from the Midwest, I think a field of tall corn is one of the most beautiful things there is.
Well,
Hey, Deb,
driving
I'm
through
just coming back
Kansas,
from Illinois.
Mile after mile after mile. The kids are gonna be
We don't
looking at
have
the phone in
mile
the
after
back seat.
mile.
It's beautiful. I just came back from Illinois. I love corn. I love that as well. And I like that.
Corn today?
I came
Just
back.
back and they had corn? Whew.
No, they aren't
Them
in the
boys can
fields
grow
yet.
corn, and girls too.
Yeah, Lynn, they have so much rain out there. They are not getting in the fields for another 2 weeks at a minimum. But, Larry, I'm sorry.
Larry, you got a question?
Yeah,
Larry?
looking back, I'm looking at that scope of services document that CJ sent us. And that's the proposal or the request for proposal to Bergman. Is that correct, CJ, or is that their offer? I'm not the sharpest chisel in the pouch, but I read through that whole thing and I didn't see anything in there about the property owners being involved in any part of this initial kickoff.
Yeah, that would be part of the public.
That's what disturbed me when Todd was talking about that he didn't intend to bring any of the property owners in on it. Looking at that and looking at this Exhibit A, I think that not having the property owners in the areas that are affected involved is a major faux pas.
That is definitely intended. They've been asked to. This firm was, and Tom, feel free to correct me if I'm mischaracterizing this, but my understanding is this firm was engaged largely because of their deep public engagement expertise. And so to me, that also includes really anyone affected in the town.
Well, my problem is in the construction industry, what I learned, if it ain't written down, it never happened. And I didn't see any reference to the property owners in that Exhibit A. Like I said, maybe I missed it. I'm not the sharpest chisel in the pouch, but
Okay,
I think
Larry, first of all, stop saying you're not the sharpest when your last name is Sharpstein. Okay, so that's already very funny.
Is that a racial slur?
No, it's totally it's meant as a compliment. Yeah, there certainly is. Well, again, I'll let CJ answer this. There's no intent to not include landowners, and I think we want landowners included. I think what I presented, we didn't go out there and explicitly figure out whose land we were talking about, and so you're right that they should be included.
Yeah, that's I agree that there probably is no intent to leave them out, but in my experience, if it's not included in writing, it usually gets overlooked.
Okay.
So
Larry,
I would agree with Larry's comments. I think that if you look at page 1 of that document, you look at stakeholder interviews, they talk about 4 interviews, one-on-one or focus groups. I think that it would be good feedback to them to tell them we would specifically be looking for focus groups that include landowners in areas where they're looking at, something that would impact them. I know that we get busy with life, and if you're not focused on this, if you've got growing kids or your job or whatever, and you're not focused on what the town's doing, then all of a sudden you can find yourself at the end of the process finding out that somebody has legislated you out of your property rights, whatever those rights were. That happened to me. I don't want it to happen to other people in this town. And So I think we need to be very explicit with Bergman that that's something we explicitly want to have in their stakeholder interviews would be property owners. And that property owners should be, I think that they should be notified not just on, for instance, the town website, but they should get positive notification via a letter in the mail telling them that your parcel would potentially be included in or has been identified as something special that we're considering for, whatever kind of action or potential action. So here's your opportunity to get involved and have your voice heard.
That's
As usual.
excellent feedback. I want to thank both Dean and Larry. That's really, really good feedback to us of what we should do next, right?
Lynn, you had a comment? Lynn?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I kind of look at that. Starving isn't half so bad if it isn't you. And so the thing I take away is A, the property owners, and B, we have the UNA list, and it has no regulation. It's just that a developer should be aware of it, and the planning board can kind of point that out when somebody comes in to do a development. This is way broader, but an idea, a site plan for residences, businesses. I realize I get out of the transition zone, it just take everything, screw it. And so the other ground, that's in a transition zone next to the fire company there. I mean, I just kind of chose these, years ago. And so it's nice to be so damn special. But I mean, if we really look at the views, the SD Hill, going down SD Hill, there's a pull off for views, but you have to cut trees down to see anything, even in the wintertime. And the one at the top of the hill is geology, and those trees haven't grown up yet, at the top of SD Hill, and obviously coming down the hill at into Ludlowville, whatever you want to call it, on top of that is very special. But when you look other places, Lake Ridge Road has the real views. Not, so is this a Lansing? No, we're hooking it onto 34B. It's not the ideal views. I mean, you have some great views down in the Salmon Creek Valley too. And just because it's a scenic byway, because some group started it in Seneca County, all of a sudden, it's taken on a life of its own. So indexing great views is that. And then there's the quote scenic byway and, the dangers or the non-dangers of this this zone overlay, because that can change it in, legislation in 60 days. And that's kind of hanging over your head.
Yep, Lynn, I think we all totally agree with you.
Something related to what Dean was saying, Lynn was saying, and Larry was saying, Tom and Todd, is that I didn't see anything in here about compensation. So if the end product is a limitation on private owners' ability to do what he or she wants with their property, how are they going to be compensated? Is it going to be development rights? Is it going to be via zoning? So I think Bergman needs to address, that should go hand in hand. We're looking at protecting the space and the views. We may be taking something away from somebody. How do we make it good if we're taking something from somebody? And that should be part of this whole program as well.
Yeah, I agree, Alfonso. That's outside of we're just an advisory council, so we can provide information. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. As this whole group, as you guys all move forward, somebody, and I'm just gonna pile more on CJ's lap. She can figure out like how she's gonna figure out how people get compensated, because I don't know. but I think you're absolutely right. That's a concern.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a good chunk of the reason that why we're undertaking the open space index is to really get real about all the priority areas, work with these landowners. And I do want to just mention that one of the first tasks right out of the gate is actually to develop the outreach strategy itself. So they're being tasked with developing something pretty robust. If the CAC wishes, they could certainly bounce it off planning board for comments. There's no reason why not, to help enhance that process, and see no harm in that. But one of the implementation pieces, so the final piece of this project all coming together, is thinking through all of the various ways that both towns, private parties, and other organizations can work within the town to acquire development rights, place agricultural and conservation easements, and really think through all the ways that could be accomplished. So there's a lot of financing tools at the town's disposal. We just haven't, to this point, really organized all of these open spaces in a way that allows us, other than Belt Station, which I think maybe you're all familiar with from being called out in the comprehensive plan. That was one significant parcel that, because it had been reiterated so many times over and over and over in various planning documents, you really had the momentum and background that had been adopted years and years before to be able to say, we were clear that we wanted to do X, Y, and Z, and that really enabled that to happen. So I think that's really, I think the tone and the angle that CAC is thinking about this within. But again, Tom and Todd can talk about that more. Sure.
I thought that was well
Dale,
said.
we haven't heard from you, Sandy or Dale. Do you have any comments? Haven't heard from you guys? Dale or Sandy?
Well, it's an interesting discussion, and we certainly have a ways to go on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Sandy?
I agree that, if you can't do what do you call it? Taken? You can't just take land and not give somebody something in return.
I think we're all in agreement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course, they do it all the time, but
Well,
you really
okay.
shouldn't.
Well, I think if you have a tasteful brewery, good site plan, and you have a tasteful, let's say, like the architectural firm down there on Burdick Hill, was it Egner that used to be down there, that fit nicely into things? Don't tell me about freaking traffic. The brewery's going to have all the traffic, and something that fits well into the landscape, that is a positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
Lynn, if you think about the height of buildings and how far they're set back from the road, that, that can certainly have a visual impact. So, if you take a 35-foot building, but it's right up next to the road, that's going to block a lot of view. But if you set it back substantially and the land is sloping down, towards the lake to a certain degree, that, those are some of the things that I would think would be a consideration in that kind of an overlay district when it comes to development, for instance.
I mean, you go over on the other side of Seneca Lake. I mean, there's so many wineries on top of each other. You might as well freaking have a city.
Deb, you have any other comments? Deb? Anything else?
Well, I was just thinking about all that corn. You could make some good bourbon.
It's a lot easier to ship it. You realize that. Very efficient.
But it's local, farm to glass.
You gotta drink it. That's the problem.
I'm sure the CAC would be, our wheels could be greased with a little bourbon, so just send it our way.
You
We
it's
already
interesting
have a commercial
how many
distillery.
hats people are willing to hang on farmers. Like, well, hell, you can just make cheese in your frickin' spare time.
Yeah.
And, it's a very, and it's one thing to change, and it's another thing to try to be a chameleon.
But can you
We
multitask?
already have a
Lynn?
commercial distillery in King Ferry, and they're having their own problems.
What's
That's,
that, Larry?
I
Which
said
one's
we
that?
already have a commercial distillery in King Ferry, and they're having their own problems.
What's that? What's the problem there? I didn't hear it. What's?
Marketing.
Ah,
Little financial management, all kinds of things, but they got a honking grant. put all that together. And
That makes everything right.
and they were peddling stuff down in the Liberty store down at in South Lansing. It was Red Star or something like that. It had a nice Putin-esque kind of name. And but yeah, and it wasn't bad. I went up and Dave gave me a sample. Outside there was a spigot on the bottom of a valve on the bottom of a tank, and so I could have gone up there at 2 in the morning and gotten a couple more jugs if I wanted to. The security was a little lax.
I'll give you my address, Lynn. You can drop some off at my house.
All
Hey,
right, we're kind of getting outside the round. Any other related questions for Tom or Todd? Anyone else?
So I have a question for CJ. They talk about the, what is it, ArcGIS or something? Yeah, ArcGIS. I'm assuming that would integrate with the other GIS mappers that the county uses, that we are using. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So ArcGIS is moving more to being web-based and being able to share really easily with folks. I don't know if any of you have run across, say, like the new FEMA flood mapper, or Tompkins County recently did a cool map on how the differences will be between the existing flood maps and what the new proposed changes will be. But what we've asked them, the consultants, to do is prepare something called a story map, and it's a really really interactive way to engage with mapped materials, along with photographs and stories about different points on the map. And there's oodles of them out there. I'll just pop a link in the chat so you can investigate some of these as you like. But yeah, the great news about this data is that it will live with the town, and it can be dynamic and can be refreshed over the years, which is really cool. You get a new data layer. You could put it up to be more visible, or put it up to replace maybe an old data layer. So it doesn't have to be, the cool thing is that it doesn't have to be static. It's not kind of a one-time only snapshot. It could really be something of a living document. So that link will take you to some sample story maps so you can see what I mean.
Okay.
How about the flood maps? Are we looking to make sure, as part of this, that we have pretty good comprehensive updated flood maps for the town?
Yeah, in fact, FEMA publishes their maps. If you are interested in that map, I could just share that map with you. But
I know sometimes there are parcels where the flood map just doesn't really apply, or it's not updated for a particular parcel.
Yes. So the last time, this is probably getting way too far into the weeds, but the flood insurance rate maps are a regulatory document, and those were last updated in kind of the mid 80s. You guys probably know this way better than I do, but in any event, FEMA's been going through a process called Risk Map over the last, I guess it's about 3 years, where they've been updating the proposed new firm, so the new flood insurance rate maps. And the county has done a pretty cool little comparison viewer, which I'll share with you. But yeah, there's going to be some changes to the maps that are in some cases pretty significant.
Mm-hmm.
CJ,
Okay, I think. Go ahead, Tom.
CJ, do you know when the new FEMA maps are supposed to come out?
That's a good, well, they're kind of out. So I've popped in the chat here. The first link is to that story maps gallery I was talking about. And then the second one goes to the proposed draft 1% chance flood areas. And it goes really into super nice detail. So you can see some before and afters there. So if you're interested in the new flood maps, this is kind of an example almost of a story map of the way that you can, and of course, this only shows one example, but in a story map, more like what we're envisioning, it's much more interactive than just this, just these few data layers here, but it can have a very similar type of look and field trip.
Okay, we can let Todd go, I guess. Todd and Tom, thank you for your presentation and your effort. Thank you. Appreciate
So
it.
thank you. I hope we get to meet in person in the future so you guys can just throw stuff at me. Wouldn't that be great?
Never.
Bourbon.
Nice job.
Bourbon at you.
You guys are awesome.
All right, thanks again. Thank you.
Good talent.
Tom, anything else you want to just go over real quickly?
Well, I just want to make it clear that we're not trying to steal anybody's land. We were tasked with defining an overlay district and picking out particular areas that we thought were exceptional, and that's all we're trying to do.
So the town has Myers Park. They got 600 acres north of the thing, and now they want more. So I'm not blaming you, Tom, at all. And I know it's a great job. I do wonder, and I brought up earlier, but if you can't see over the hill, why you want to be 1,000 feet if you can only see 250? But
Well, we went out with rangefinders, and 1,000 feet seemed quite appropriate for even looking down the hill.
I'm talking up. I'm talking on looking to the east. Looking
Well,
to the east
both ways actually. The northern part of the town, it seemed like 1,000 feet was much more appropriate than say 500 in terms of
down by the fire station and one thing and another. But no, I mean the ideas are great. It's just how to go about it and
yeah,
what we can do
yeah.
with
I mean,
and
this is
better
just
things to go forward.
this is just
Especially
our
the yurt colony.
Larry, Larry?
Tom, I've got no issue with the way you made the presentation. My concern is that there's a point in time when concerns have to be presented. And this is that point in time so that we can get in early so that everybody is considered.
sure. No,
I like the idea of the overlay. You know, I've been in favor of it.
Right.
But the problem with any of these tools is how they're used. And unless we place the protections in now, the possibility of abuse is always there.
There's a Route 20. I just got links today to their Scenic Byway report, which was accepted some years ago. And that must have been pretty, I mean, the only thing that I heard that were there were squeaks was signage. And signage I have no problem with. I mean, that's not a big deal, but
What county is this, Lynn? What county?
Route 20, there's a Route 20 byway, and this was a report with Madison County.
Madison?
One of the guys I know, farmer up there, was involved with it, but he just got the data to me today.
The windmills of Madison County.
Tom, definitely make a note on what Lynn just said regarding signage.
yeah.
That
Yeah,
would
good
certainly
point.
be a concern in the Scenic Byway that would potentially vary from, the signage requirements in the rest of the town.
Yeah, good point.
Okay. All right, let's move on. We're gonna try and do something a little different in the upcoming months, just as we have a town board member give us a quick snapshot of what's happened in the recent past. We're gonna try and do that with the ag and conservation and parks and trails as well, and even the capital and code revision. So the first one on the list is the ag, and I believe Lynn and Larry are both members. I don't think we've had any meetings recently, correct?
That's correct.
2018. I wanted to know, do we have a new committee? It used to be called the Ag Committee, and now we have an Ag and Farmland Protection Committee.
CJ?
Yeah, that's what I thought it was always called. At least that's what's
Right.
in the 2015 plan, I think.
Yeah, I think that just should have said Ag Committee on that first line, Lynn. That's all.
Well, it's all good. No, because the farmland protection for the county, everybody's protecting. So it's a wonderful thing, but,
So next month, hopefully Lynn or Larry, you both gonna try and make the meeting?
yeah, the June.
Yeah,
June
well, I
meeting sounds
am.
reasonable.
One of the issues that I had is the last I knew, my name wasn't on the list as a member of the committee, and I asked a question about that. But yeah, I've been trying to keep up to date with CJ on the last time it was in June, right?
Yeah. Yep, we've got Wednesday, June 8th. I think that
Yeah.
was the best
Now-
date for everybody at 11 a.m.
I
Yeah,
don't
what's,
know, is it problematic that some of the members haven't gotten their training in workplace violence and sexual harassment? Is that
anyone who
required?
didn't get that training is not on the committee anymore. That's
Yeah.
why the committee ended up shrinking. And also so resolution 2226 has Larry listed as the liaison from the Agriculture and Farmland Protection Committee to the planning board, but not listed as a member. So I think that's just an error.
So you
How many
wouldn't-
members on that board now, or that committee, CJ?
Hold on just a moment. So the members are per resolution 2248, assuming Larry is on as a liaison, it would be Larry, John, Fleming, Todd Eldred, Lynn, and Al. So that's 5.
Right, but I mean, how many farmers are on that as
Then we have
well?
a whole mess of town board, other town liaisons like Andrews and Joe is the alternate. Monica Roth for Cornell Cooperative Extension, who I think now is replaced by Graham, maybe. Graham
Mhm.
Savio, does that sound right?
Right.
Right.
Me for planning, and then Judy Drake for zoning board.
Question, I noticed a lot of the members that I used to see at the meetings are not on the list. Is that because they didn't take the training?
That's my understanding. That's
Because, you know, the resolution that you're talking about, like I said, I'm not the sharpest one around, but I don't remember ever seeing a copy of it. Is it a town board resolution?
yeah, every January, the organizational resolutions. I think they're usually past the first meeting in January. So these were, I don't know, January 19th.
Okay, well, yeah, my fault. I don't read the town board meeting minutes, so, or not all.
No
of them,
worries.
so. But do we have a way of getting, of making it very clear to these people that they need to be taking their training in order to get on? For instance, one of the guys that was very active on that committee, I know is also on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I'm assuming Peter took his training.
Peter left the Board of Zoning Board of Appeals. He wasn't
Really?
able to continue.
Yeah, the training thing
I did ask him to stay.
is pay to play, you know? And I don't know as stakeholders whether people can speak out. I understand the laws of the land, but some of those people are just not gonna do it. And I don't know whether instead of online training, whether there's somebody that does it. I know there's people that go to the farms to do the training for employees and for managers, whether we could somehow get it done that way instead of certain people I know logging onto the computer.
My concern is there are some viewpoints that we really ought to have that are shut out because of this. And
I
the
agree with
question is,
Larry. I agree with Larry
how far down the
100%.
line? How far down the line to this requirement for training in a totally volunteer situation like the Ag Committee? How far down the line should that go? And maybe we should address that with the town board.
Lynn, do you
I
think
agree,
it's,
Larry, 100%.
Lynn, do you think it's primarily a technological thing?
Well, I know I had a lot of fun with it for the trainings I had to do, and some of it's technical, but a lot of it is done by professional trainers. People just aren't going to go do that kind of thing.
Because I thought the material was pretty vanilla material.
Vanilla is the easy part, maybe setting it up so everybody can log on. I mean, the material is not a big deal. Getting
Right.
through the questions, but then all of a sudden you realize there's a little gidgey down here that you find so you can go to the next question, or, you know, and then even just getting certified to get on. And a lot of it's better now than it was, but I don't know. I think there's certain people that aren't going to put up with it. And
Not necessarily a Luddite, but there are certain parts of that that weren't really user friendly. I agree with Lynn.
I mean, there was all this stuff, and then your training, I mean, all of it was in like a 20-point type, and then there's a little box that says your training in an 8-point font. And, you know, you're going to find it after a while or die, but.
So CJ, is that something that somebody could give a presentation at one of the meetings and satisfy that requirement? If they all attended a meeting, in-house meeting?
Sure. And that is pretty much how we used to do it, as far as I understand. But then there was the whole pandemic thing. So I think maybe some people who just got tripped up by that. And, there was also kind of a confluence of change in personnel. So I don't know how many of you are aware, but longtime bookkeeper Charmaine Rumgay is retired. So she's left the town, and we have new folks. And there was a very, I would say, pretty serious message that if the sexual harassment training was not taken, then folks would not be able to continue with the town per the attached policy that is headed your way. I think the town is pretty steadfast in wanting to enforce that. But I'm hear what you're saying, and I do just want to mention that when I when I receive things that I think are of interest to the ag community, I try to send them really broadly, even if it's not folks maybe who are officially members, but folks who I know have expressed past interest. So I try to distribute things, pretty widely, and I hope, anything that I send that's kind of an FYI that you would also pass that on to folks that you think might be interested. So I do try to keep people still engaged and kind of knowing what's going on. But I think I'm hearing you all say that this is not a very big ag committee, and what happens to the people, and let's try to get them their trainings so that they could possibly return to us. If maybe.
So-
Has that training been distributed for this year?
Not yet for this year.
Oh,
I don't think so. Heather is just marvelous and takes care of all those things for you guys and every single committee, and keeps really, really good track of that. So I'll make a note to follow up with her when I see her on Thursday about the status of those trainings. All right.
Yeah, I asked, and that hasn't been distributed yet.
I didn't think so.
Okay.
So-
Yeah. We're only.
CJ, I'm wondering if there's kind of an in-between option for people to participate in. So in other words, as opposed to something that you have to search around and click through, if there's something, for instance, like just a YouTube video they can click on and watch the training, and then an affidavit that they could sign and submit saying, hey, I went through this training.
Right. I
As
agree.
opposed to I have to click through it, and it's not intuitive, and it's difficult for me to handle on the computer, but you could still do it on your own time, type of thing.
I did
Got it.
with
Okay.
Roberta Reardon, and that was a YouTube.
Because we do an affidavit for our what's the one that we just got, the conflict of interest, ethics.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ethics
Right.
one.
We fill that out and sign it and send it in.
No, totally. I think what was happening is that maybe people didn't come in and sign the form that said that they took the training. And I think there was some attempt at following up with them, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out with all the members. But I think I'm hearing that you'd like to try to take another attempt or maybe consider different materials that could get people to the end goal. And I think those are the two required trainings, the workplace violence and sexual harassment. But I'll double check with Heather. She knows all about those things. So.
Okay, I guess we're okay. And so Larry, after that meeting, the next first meeting of the month, maybe just a quick presentation or a quick what happened and what's going on and that type of-
Absolutely.
All right, great. Next is conservation. Tom, anything else you want to add?
Sure, I have a few things.
Okay.
The CAC took a look at the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, the CLCPA, draft scoping plan, which was over 300 pages and 500 pages of appendices, and was asked to comment on that. And we did that, and we sent it off to CJ, and it'll become part of the state. The state is taking comments until June 10th. And we didn't agree with everything they were trying to do, but I guess if you're interested in that, I can pass it on to you,
Thank you.
our comments.
Okay.
The April CAC meeting was pretty much wholly devoted to interviewing the 4 finalists. There were 6 proposals for this open space index, and there were 4 that seemed to stand out, and each of those 4 were interviewed by a subcommittee of the CAC for basically about an hour each. And the general consensus was Bergman Architects, Engineers, and Planners out of Rochester was the preferred group. And again, the community engagement aspect was a big part of that. So that's why they ended up getting offered the award, and I think the town board is going to vote on that their next meeting. In the May meeting, we had Pat Terrell, and he was interested in comments regarding the Parks, Recreation, and Trails Master Plan. And one of the things that came out of that, a big thing that came out of that was there was a meeting of a bunch of people in Ludlowville about the master plan and how it related to the Ludlowville Park. And with the rerouting of a lot of the traffic through Ludlowville, all of a sudden this park got a lot more use than people were used to. And I guess it wasn't really appreciated. They didn't think that it would be a great idea to put bathrooms in there and make a fancy pathway down to the lower part of the falls and then tell people you can't go swimming, but you can look. But they thought handicap access to the overlook would be a definite improvement. But overall, I guess the impression was they kind of liked the park the way it was, and we're not thrilled about it being overdeveloped. So
Very interesting.
yeah.
Farming isn't half so bad if it isn't you.
Larry, what do you have? Larry?
Yeah, I had some comments that I sent to CJ on the Myers Park, and I wanted to know if those perhaps should have gone to you, or CJ probably forwarded them to you, right?
I forwarded them to Pat.
Yes.
To Pat too.
Pat has seen, I sent some comments, Sandy did, you did. I believe they were all forwarded to Pat.
Yeah.
So,
well, I recently have had some insight into some things that I would rather not have had insight into. And one of those is access for people with physical limitations. And, I like the idea of limiting traffic through the park, but you're basically, that plan, in my way of thinking, disenfranchise a certain segment of the population by not allowing them to access the pavilions out past where the proposed end of traffic is, number one. You don't have to let people park out there, but let them drive their cars out to deliver their stuff to the pavilion, and then drop off the people who find it difficult to motivate from the parking lot to the pavilion, because those carts are a great idea, but when you're ready to use them, they ain't going to be around. They're going to be used by somebody else, or they'll have been stolen.
Yeah, we're kind of getting into Deb's.
Sorry about that.
part. I got Tom. Anything else, and then we'll
Uh,
go to Deb. Anything
Yeah,
else?
yeah. Let's see. What else? Oh, yeah, the other thing was, CJ brought up at our last meeting, just last week. She brought up the idea that this Dandy Mart is going to be a type 1 action, in which case the CAC is expected to weigh in on it. So
Okay.
I mean, obviously the planning board will be the lead agency, but CAC will have some input to the planning board anyways.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that covers basically, I mean, and then Todd covered what we had done with that. And then the focus for, I think the foreseeable future is going to be this open space index and conservation plan.
Okay, great. Anything else for Tom on conservation? Okay, great. Deb, can you give us we kind of got into a little bit of your territory here earlier on the parks and trails.
Yeah, the Parks and Trails Committee met for, it seems like practically 2 years with MJ Engineering, going over the plans and their plans for getting engagement and getting an input. I think they did a pretty good idea of getting input from people who use the parks regularly. I found them a little frustrating in terms of what they understood for Salt Point, for example. They kept calling it any number of things instead of just a DC hunting area. The DEC there, but they came up with a number of plans. As I say, they got a lot of input as the COVID really ran and messed that process up, because I think as part of their model, they usually have in-person, on-site settings where they can gather information, where they set up tables at, say, Myers Park. People in the park can come in and give them feedback. So they had to try to get a hold of people, and we know how that works. There wasn't the kind of turnout for the online situations that you probably want, but there was a pretty good representation. Representation is the wrong word. There are pretty large numbers of people giving input at various times.
Okay.
And they came up with a big plan
Right.
for all the areas.
So what's the latest? What's the most recent activity now down at Myers? What's going on there now? Where are you at on that?
No idea, because the committee hasn't met. I think
okay.
the proposal at the town board for setting out an RFP to actually implement the Myers plan.
Okay. Okay. And when's your next meeting then?
I don't know if we have one. So far, our meetings have just been dealing with MJ Engineering.
Okay. All right. Any
Do we have
questions?
more meetings, CJ?
It's really up to Pat, what he
Okay.
would like to refer over. But the committee, I believe, made the recommendation to advance the plan on, I think it was April 6th or something like that, to town board. And so that's the next stop is town board on May 18th.
Okay. Any other questions for Deb or CJ on that? All right, let's move on. We've got the Capital Improvement Committee. We've had a couple meetings I've attended, and CJ's been there. I think the primary concern was the cost of the new proposed highway barn complex. With inflation and price of materials and labor. They're concerned in what may happen. Dean, you have any feedback on that, or Larry?
These prices are stabilizing to a certain degree, but inflation is going to continue to go up. It's always a surprise what's next on the list that's becoming scarce or is an issue. I haven't seen the design, so I'm not quite sure what kind of materials we're looking at, whether it's just, steel and insulation and concrete. It's difficult to get contractors. So, I think the town has traditionally done a lot of things in-house as much as they can. And I think that would be the best approach for them to look at, is how much can they do in-house for sweat equity to keep the costs down.
Agreed. Because the other problem you're looking at there is bringing in outside contractors. You're forced to deal with the fair price or prevailing rate issue.
Prevailing wage, yeah.
And it doesn't really lend any incentive for open shops to bid. But I agree with Dean. In the past, a lot of the work that's gone on in the town, as I tried to point out with the work in the parks, has been done in sweat equity from local volunteer groups and by the town highway department themselves. I know the barn that's there now, they did a lot of the interior work themselves.
Yeah. I believe we have a presentation on Wednesday, right, CJ, with the vendor. Is that correct? We'll get more information then.
Yeah, Bergman Associates was also the firm retained for the highway department renovation project feasibility study as well. So they finished that up about ways ago now.
One other thing, they're also looking at combining possibly parks with the highway there. So it's not just going to be a highway barn. It's actually going to be more of a, what's the term they use, CJ? A complex for the town.
I would say Public Works, but
Public Works,
I don't know if that's, I don't want to retitle an entire department right in this meeting.
Well, if I may, in the past, that's what it always has been anyway, because the highway department also provided most of the labor for the work done in the parks that wasn't volunteer.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Public Works is probably an accurate description, CJ.
Okay. Anything else on the capital, CJ? Anything that's really pressing? That not really.
Those are kind of the highlights. Also, just thinking through what a capital project really is. As you all may know, there's the consolidated funding application, which there's this, our favorite Hunger Games of grants that the state releases every May. That list is now out for 2022. And really, we just see it as a great way to get all the department heads together and understand what their priorities are, that so I can be on the lookout for different pots of money to be able to go after grants accordingly. So we've been pretty organized with that from the beginning, but it just gives us a chance to formalize that process and keep others in town hall in the loop as well. So.
Okay, good. All right, let's just move on quickly. The code revision. We also had a couple meetings. I think the one thing that stood out to me was the definition of ag and ag related properties. Would you say, CJ, that caused a lot of conversation, so to speak?
So and the code revision committee is kind of digging into that. You all did a lot of really marvelous prior work with the ag committee. And so we're essentially reviving that work along with, there's a lot of really, this is my little reference books that I keep handy, everything back from a 2008 review done by New York Planning Federation to the Farmland Protection Plan. And recently, Lynn and I discussed George Franz's excerpt from the Ag and Farmland Protection Plan as well. And so we've been trying to implement that to a T. As you know, once you start getting into differences between things like say agricultural events versus, farm operation versus kind of value added type agricultural uses. We start to get, getting really parsed down here in what the town would like to see, have the stricter, full blown site plan review versus maybe just the streamlined version that's recommended by Ag and Markets when the public may be visiting the property versus, what's allowed by right here. So I'm hoping that we will have a draft here, not to be taking away your report now, but I'm hoping to have a
No,
draft.
that's fine. So you and John were going to tune some of that up and present it back to the committee. And then will that go back to the planning board after that? Is that the game plan?
So from there, we are hoping to send it to the working groups that expressed interest. I think there was a bunch of you who said, yes, I'm interested in doing the review. So we've got the names of those folks who'd be interested in doing the ag zoning review. And yeah, so Scott and John and I are going to sit down and we're drilling into the definitions to kind of play this game I like to call crack the code, which is we're going to try to come up with some of the worst things that we can think of that would be allowed under the zoning as proposed. So to try to, think about, try to catch things that we're not thinking of, run through a couple fake applications. Somebody comes in with this type of uses, how would that be classified, and really put it through kind of an initial ringer. And I know you guys will do the same as well. But I think we're making really good progress based on, what you all constructed initially back in 2019. So thanks for that.
Great. Thank you. All right. So I think we'll just move on to the planning report.
I have not quite prepared my report for a town board yet, so I'm sorry about that, but I will just give you a quick update on some things that were on last month's report. Namely, one of the big things we're working on right now is with the Highway Department and Tompkins County Soil and Water. We're getting ready to submit a grant application to what is affectionately known as DISHES, the Department of Homeland Security for New York State. They are generously offering a really wonderful 90-10 grants right now. So 90% of the cost would be paid for the Salmon Creek Stream Bank Stabilization Project. We've been working on that for some time and trying to get funds for that so that Mikey can help stabilize that section that's next to Salmon Creek Road. And we've come up with a lot of really interesting data of what the impact would be to the town if those road was to close for some reason and be washed out, and let's just say it wouldn't be pretty. So we're working hard on getting that grant money, and it's due June 1st. Another significant thing we're trying to coordinate right now is any DOT involvement with 34 and 34B. I know that that's been an area of interest for you all to try to get some streetscape improvements and connectivity at that intersection. So I'm working on that as we speak, and hoping to have that on the May 18th town board agenda as well. But basically, if there's any questions you have on the last report, just let me know and I can happy to answer.
Great, thank you.
I have a question.
We're gonna see the convenience store next meeting. I've seen some plans and I'm pretty happy with it. And I just would like to say that it may not be ideal, but it's not bad in my opinion. And I just hope you all are take an open mind to it. We all probably have our own opinion on what would be ideal at that intersection, and it may not hit our A level, but sometimes second best isn't bad. So I just hope you have an open mind when you look at the plans. I think it's pretty good. I think John and CJ and you all did a pretty good job. The developer has been pretty, I think it's been very good in regards to responding to all your concerns, or most of your concerns. CJ, what do you think?
That'll be on the agenda for May 23rd. I'm anticipating declaration of lead agency by planning board. That'll help us get the ball rolling with some more coordination. Sandy had her hand up though, and maybe Larry too. So
I think
Sandy first.
Sandy and then Larry and Deb.
I was just gonna mention if it's anything like the Burn Dairy downtown, I think that's pretty attractive. I mean, the gas station, the building, the way they have it, it's very muted colors and it looks pretty sharp, in my opinion, for a gas station.
Mhm.
I like the
Larry?
idea of muted colors. Dandy Mart doesn't seem to be in
No,
the
it's
muted
the exterior is
colors.
going to be bricked. It's going to match the Rogues Harbor with some stone work. They want to split the canopy in two pieces, which I think is ideal. In other words, that one large canopy like at Morabito at the other intersection is pretty obtuse, pretty, by splitting it in two. There's going to be landscaping between the road and the convenience store. Maybe we might want more trees in there. We're going to have to see, but overall, I think it fits pretty well. It may not have the shed roof that a lot of you wanted, but the roof line is decorative. It doesn't look like an industrial building. I think it's going to fit pretty well. Deb, you had a question? And Larry?
Well, first of all, yeah, I have two. Go ahead, Deb.
I just wonder, is the meeting going to be Zoom or live?
We're going to town hall.
Okay.
Okay, the other thing that I had, number one, did they keep the shingles on the roof so that they didn't have the red and white roof on the canopy?
I don't remember. We'll have to see. We'll get to
Okay,
that.
my only comment was to remind everybody that even though the people from the Scenic Byway Committee were rather vociferous in their opposition to any kind of a gas station diner presentation at that corner, they are also the ones that said you really got to have a place for people to get a bite to eat and fill their cars with gas. So you can't have, in that case, I look at it as a case that they can't have their cake and eat it too. So it's our job to try to make it look as good and be as good for Lansing as we can.
Right. They're going to be bike racks. There's going to be electric charging stations. The one thing that I saw that I mentioned to John, I believe you all wanted a sidewalk along the east-west corridor. Is that correct? Wasn't that a request from most of the board members? Sandy, you remember? Weren't you?
Yeah, I think we did, but now I'm trying to remember where we wanted the sidewalk.
Yeah.
I would think that is that property just to the north, gets condemned or taken over by the town to connect.
Mhm.
I think you're potentially going to see some kind of crosswalk in the future from the south across to the north.
My understanding is the town is going to buy that property.
Right. I mean, you got to start sidewalks somewhere at some point. And
Right. And I agree with you, Dean. I mean, we probably should have talked about sidewalks years ago, considering that corridor from, Rogues Harbor to the east and down a little bit of Trip Hammer Road. If we would have started it, 5-10 years ago, many of those properties all would have been connected now. So you're right. You have to start somewhere and might as well start there.
Was it Ron Kroll a million years ago, 15 years was it, Larry? Came up with a sidewalk plan and
Yep.
had all that to the planning board. So everything comes around, goes around, and key thing is to execute. But
Hey, do you guys have a copy of that?
We had maps for things like that for the whole town, and they disappeared when the town hall moved. I've personally have gone through the archives in the basement looking for those maps, and they are not there.
he may still be alive. You might be able to generate another, iteration.
Well, they were 600 to 1 hand detailed maps.
Wow.
There were 6 of them for the whole town.
I have another question.
Sandy?
So the town bought the property that is the other side of the T on East Shore Drive and 34. Are they planning to move ahead with the plan of moving Conlin Road? Because if they are, we need to think about that when we think about this corner.
It's good point.
We're gonna see. That's another reason we need to start coordinating with DOT, because there's a lot of moving parts happening here. And so we need to kind of follow their lead on how much of the corridor they want to examine. What can they build off of our existing transportation impact study that was completed at the end of last year? What more information do they need, and how do they want to get that project rolling? So I'm asking town board to authorize our town supervisor to engage with DOT and our state elected officials to get that ball rolling.
I mean, is that what the town wants to do? That was a question. Does the town want to move Conlin Road? I mean, it's in one of the plans. It's in the future road plan. Or it
I
was.
believe I've heard they want to make that a four-way corner and connect that intersection to the development of the Milton Meadows, that whole area in the back. They want to make a loop out of that, is what my understanding was, is what the town board wanted to see. Correct, CJ?
That's my understanding. I mean, the town center planning is kind of, it seems like it's been going in fits and starts over the last 30 years. Does that sound right? So, yeah.
I'm okay if they don't want to move the road, but if they do want to move the road, then we need to think about that when we think about the corner.
Yeah, this is
Lynn?
another reason we want to get DOT engaged, to think about this holistically as much as we can. Yeah.
Lynn, you have a comment?
I have two. One, micro level. I mentioned for the outdoor seating for that Dandy Mart, a low wall or something like that to protect. I don't know if they were going to put, what do they call them, Larry? Bolsters?
Bollards.
Balusters. Because you read what these yin yangs are doing, running around, running over people, going up sidewalks, and this is New York City, but we're in New York State, and they're just as crazy. And I think that if you have a parking area and somebody's, I don't know, impaired in one way or another and decides to take off, that would just be a really ugly situation.
They did move the truck parking away from the daycare center over to the southeast area of the lot, which I thought was a nice thing to do.
But I'm talking about just normal unhappy drivers. We seem to have
I know.
A lot of them, and people, I mean, Kay was downtown and somebody went through Meadow Street about 80 miles an hour thinking they were, some kind of Formula One driver, and nobody did anything about it. I would just hate that we would take a chance like that. So as we go forward, and wasn't there one plan where it would have like going through the old red and white, lining up with Conlin Road? It made no sense, but this four-way corner would be outstanding. The original plan over there had a loop road, as I remember. Larry, don't you remember there was a loop road in town, whatever it was, on the north side of the road?
On the north side of the road, yeah. Yeah, it went all the way from just the south side of the prison, all the way across through the town land and out onto Conlin Road. It was a parallel street.
Yeah.
Lined up with Buck? I can't remember.
No, it wasn't that far up. It was, it probably came out 400 to 600 yards north of Route 34B on Conlin Road. It was just back behind the last of those houses.
Okay.
Okay, anything else, Tom? Yep, what do you got?
Al, did Dandy Mart resolve their exits and entrances in terms of neighbors across the street and how they're gonna have headlights shining in their windows?
I don't know. I think they're relying on the DOT to tell them where those driveways are, and I think most of that is based on DOT. Is that correct, CJ?
Yeah, and then we certainly have time to get into that in detail. Environmental review just coming up.
Pit
But-
stop had people coming out of it too in the day.
Yeah, but overall, I think, my opinion, but I think overall, the concept as a whole is pretty nice. I think it's pretty good, and you all should be congratulated on getting it to where it is right now. It's a pretty good. I think the community will like it once it's up and going. You know, yeah, there's some fine tuning we're all going to have to do with it, but overall, I think it looks good, and I think it'll be well used. And maybe competition will drive some of those gas prices down.
I just
Or
walked here today.
$4.79 in Moravia today, my son said.
$5.66 for off-road diesel.
Under $6? Where'd you find that?
Off-road diesel, no tax at Marabado. I'm on a daily
Oh.
price thing, and they were able to deliver, but I think things are going to get worse. I hate to be
Yes,
pessimistic.
they are.
Want enough to get through harvest if I have to.
Gas prices in California for my California relatives are way more expensive than here. They're almost $6 a gallon.
Or more than $6 in some places. Yeah.
But I think if it hits that $5 a gallon up here in central New York, that's really gonna turn things off, I think, overall, a lot of things. I don't know. All right, I guess.
I'm glad you've got a Dollar General to go buy a jug of milk at 5 miles from your house.
All right, anything else, folks? All right, meeting, I guess we're gonna close it out. Is that correct?
Okay, have a
All in
good
favor?
evening, everybody.
Motion to
Bye,
adjourn.
everybody.
Appreciate your comments. Thank
Bye.
you all.
Tom, thank you for your view sheds.
Sure.